Presented by That Time I Got Reincarnated in the same world as an anime podcaster, this is Shonen Jumping the Gun, the show where we set our sights on the first chapter of a manga and decide if it's a misfire or a bullseye.
Let's see how many rounds are in this magazine. On today's episode, the magical revolution of the reincarnated princess and the genius young lady.
Welcome, everybody. I am your genius young lady, Kermit the Grog, here with my magical revolutionary reincarnated princess, Isekai Sensei Sama Brad. Brad, how you doing? It's one of your episodes. It's an episode 9.
All these memories flooding back into my brain.
I lived in Korea or Japan.
This is Japan.
I lived in Japan.
I understand the confusion.
The worms are back.
Most of the time we talk about this, it's Korea, but this time it's Japan.
I wasn't sure. So yes, this is another episode 9, which means we are covering a light novel isekai brought to me by my co-host Brad that I will feel some way about.
Feelings are good.
Feelings are good. Feeling things is better than not
feelings.
feeling things.
Yeah.
Do you have any information on this that you wish to share before we delve in?
There's an anime.
Is it out or is it coming out?
That's a good question, and I'm not going to look it up.
You guys look it up. Who knows? Probably by the time you hear this, it'll be out if you're listening to it in the far future. Who knows? Maybe it'll get canceled before it comes out. That'd be egg on our face.
Let's pretend it's out.
Let's pretend it's out. The anime is out, but we haven't seen it yet. Anything else? How long this has been running? The place to read it?
This has actually been coming out for a long time.
A vaguish number of chapters.
I'm
not going to hold you to it, but it'd be nice.
I actually did not even...
Man.
I wasn't thinking about the research.
They can't all be winners. Sometimes Brad's not as prepared as he usually is. Sometimes he's not always hitting dingers.
Official English on Yen Press.
Ah.
Which it looks like there are... You can get it from, well, pretty much everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Crunchyroll store. Okay.
I'm going to tell you a little secret. I didn't read it officially, because that's also not the link that was given to me. I'm sorry, everybody.
It looks like there's 5 volumes out right now. 6.
Okay. Officially in English?
6.
Okay. We got some.
No. Oh, the 6th one is going to come out soon.
We got some groundswell.
Definitely a lot going on.
Yeah. So with that, it is time to start my patented Kermit speedrun summary, written by Isekai Sensei Sama Brad, and he's written a small novelette, and we're also very bad at talking tonight, so
I did my best, and there are even parts in there where I went and yada, yada, yada.
And admittedly, we did read the first 2 chapters, because we learned our lesson with the last light novel isekai. Oh, wow, dang. That one you were prepared on. But just also it's long because this is the first 2 chapters, even if both chapters were like very normally like 30-some.
It's still less than 70 pages.
Yeah. Less than our normal chapter 1s from Jump. Once upon a time, there was a certain princess from a certain kingdom. This princess harbored a deep longing and obsession with magic, which began when she regained the memory she held of a previous life. And while both sweeping up and charming the people around her, she never stopped pursuing her passion for magic's deepest truths. The princess Anne Sophia von Paletia?
I guess.
I like it's like let's just butcher all the languages.
You won't have to say that again.
Good. I'll have to butcher other names. The princess Anne Sophia von Paletia. There's no the placenta stands in the cold night air, readying herself for a broomstick flight. Her maid, Ilya, hands her a cloak and scolds her about doing dangerous things, and she is the first princess. Anne cuts her off abruptly and shoots off into the night. The sensation of flight makes her reminisce about the time when she was a child, and the memories of her past life flooded into her head as she wished to soar like a bird with magic. Elsewhere, at a ball, the crown prince declares in front of the entire ensemble that he is annulling his engagement to Euphalia Magenta. These spellings are an affront to the English language, which is saying a lot, because the English language is already an affront to the English language.
I mean, magenta's a normal word.
Magenta's fine. I meant Euphilia is just like, what are you doing?
That one you have to say a lot, so.
I know. I can say it. It's just the spelling is like, come on, guys. Let's not be that extra. The daughter of the lauded Duke Magenta. Everyone is taken aback, but the prince goes on to accuse Euphilia of doing terrible things to another girl, Rihanna. The prince had grown close to this girl in spite of being engaged, and even though Euphilia had only respectfully confronted Rihanna about getting close to the prince, rumors had spread out of control that bullying had occurred, even going as far as attempted assassination. A loud argument ensues between the prince and Euphilia, which is then interrupted by the prince's entourage, who declare that they are eyewitnesses to the alleged incidents. Well, if you've ever read any other villainous manga, this engagement annulment event plays out just like every other one you've seen. Except as the climax is reached, a sound from outside grows louder and louder until crash! Princess Anne comes smashing through the window and tumbles to a stop right in between the prince and Duke's daughter. Anne seems to have no idea what's going on, but her brother, Prince Al, is furious at being interrupted. The crowd murmurs about Anne, as she isn't often seen, since she is somewhat of an outcast, having no ability to perform magic. After some back and forth, Anne guesses the situation correctly, and then quickly makes a decision. Hand outstretched, she propositions Euphilia to come with her, and with no time to answer, Anne grabs her and flies back out the broken window she crashed in through. As they fly through the night sky, Euphilia asks why Anne is doing this, to which she replies that if Al doesn't want Euphilia, Anne will have her hand instead. This ends Chapter 1, which is enough of a hook for a villainous sand, but we continue to Chapter 2 to get a bigger picture and to get a high enough page count. There you go. There it was. We see the king and Duke Magenta working late into the night. They are close friends, so the king insists that they chat casually while the king takes a break from paperwork. They speak about their daughters, how Euphilia takes after her father in being calm and well-mannered, while Anne is a spitfire who causes endless worry for the king. The conversation meanders to the crown prince, who they know has been hanging around with a baron's daughter, and how they aren't being discreet, and how even with the academy they are being closed off to the outside world as much as possible, rumors are still leaking out. While lamenting this, they are interrupted abruptly by Prince Anne bursting through the door, giving a beleaguered Euphilia a piggyback ride. Anne declares that she has kidnapped Euphilia, to which her father the king responded by giving her a lump on her head. Anne tells them that it's only because Al canceled their engagement. The king is dumbstruck and looks to Euphilia, who confirms and bows in apology. The king is furious and curses the prince for doing something so foolish, but Euphilia is scared from the outburst. Duke Magenta, in classic story-driving misunderstanding fashion, says some things that can easily be taken as scolding Euphilia for being cast aside. Anne interjects into the somber atmosphere by propositioning the king and duke to give Euphilia to her. All parties are shocked at the proposition, as it's easy to misconstrue her words as a proposal, which is fine by all of us, by the way. But Anne goes on to say that Euphilia will be her research assistant, and they were research assistants. We slide further into what we're looking at for when Euphilia is touched by this request and looks at Anne with innocent eyes, to which Anne immediately falls in love, because she's a huge weeb, I guess, in her Japan life. Snapping back to reality, there goes gravity. Anne goes on to explain how valuable Euphilia will be to her reachers, as she is loved by the spirits, is excellent in high society, is an accomplished swordswoman, and most importantly is super cute and beautiful. We'll get into it. The plan would also keep Euphilia from being completely cast out of high society after what just happened at the ball. They go on to discuss the various ways everything would play out, with the magicology research being helped along by Euphilia's talents, and how there is nothing to worry about from the perspective of government affairs because Anne has already renounced her claim to the throne. Euphilia hadn't heard of Anne's proclamation when she renounced her claim, which has apparently been kept under wraps as the princess declared that she couldn't marry a man because her lover has to be a woman. There is some more back and forth talk about the magic research and how Euphilia would be a help, during which Anne says more romantic stuff, on purpose or otherwise. During all of this, the Duke looks at the scene between Euphilia and the princess and comes to a revelation. He bows to Euphilia and apologizes for placing his high expectation on her. He tells her that it's her decision to make and to not worry about the engagement. We cut to later, after a decision has apparently been made, and the king and duke are discussing the events. They lament the situation and muse on the possibility that the prince will need to have the title of heir taken from him. But the duke is positive in this, and as he's optimistic about Anne becoming queen, even if she doesn't want to. Shifting focus to the princess's palace, Anne and Euphilia are talking about how they will live as they approach the front door. Anne assures Euphilia that it will be easy to make herself at home, as the only other person in the palace is Anne's maid, who greets them with an ominous look as they open the front door. Seeing as the princess is about to be scolded again, we are left to wonder about the drama about to take place and where the potential romance between a princess and a duke's daughter will lead. I suspect it will be a revolution! That was a lot of words.
You did a good job.
I did an okay job for a night where we can't talk very well.
I was a little worried as I was writing that, and just because things just kept happening.
It's popping off constantly.
And it was like, oh, well, that's important. Oh, got to put that. But if you are familiar with, engagement annulment stuff in villainous manga, the first chapter is relatively straightforward for you.
Okay, I'm not, so they weren't.
Yeah.
I was very confused. I was like, did this lady... I also got confused for a while because I did not figure out that when the annulment was happening that was a different woman than the woman who's like, I love magic and I have prior memories. Like, I didn't figure out what they looked like.
Really?
So, like, halfway through, I finally figured out, oh, this is a different woman and this is just a completely, at the time, unrelated scene until
I will
Anne
give
comes
you
crashing through.
that they look slightly similar, but Euphilia has much longer hair than Anne.
Brad, I didn't know for a while. I'm not going to blame the manga on this one. I'm going to blame me, but I'm that's more of my point why I was really confused about what did the magic have to do with the scene, and the answer was it didn't. These are two characters, and they will become relevant to each other. But I was because I was just like, what's happening? Who is this character? Why is there an element? Did she do these things? I don't even fully understand what she's being accused of and why she doesn't say they didn't and I was like, and then these other guys come up and they're like, she definitely did it. I'm like, did she? Like, I don't know. It was all very...
Sometimes the villains did do that stuff.
Like, she just showed, like, I'm here, like, I was just with Anne, who needlessly got her memories back, and I'm like, well, why was that important? I was just confused. I would spend a lot of these 2 chapters gripping and confused.
Quite honestly, I was reincarnated and got my memories back stuff is a bit inconsequential.
Exactly. It didn't seem like it was important at all. It just seemed like she could have been a magic wonderkin and always dreamed as a child of wanting to fly. Like, there was no point where I'm like, okay, at least that gave you a little bit of, like, reasoning of what you're doing, and maybe more of it shows up later. But it felt very like, we are obligated to do this because it's the genre, but I don't know that.
They make it more important because she's got these memories of a technologically advanced world, and she starts making magic items that mimic those things.
I got a little bit of that vibe because there's like a self-heating coffee pot that they talk about that we didn't have in the summary because there was a billion other important things to talk about.
It really isn't brought up in these first 2 chapters at all, so
not outside of literally her telling you that happened to her. They are not important. I mean, like, if you're thinking about that, you can come to the conclusion we did of like, oh, because they tell you that she invented that coffee pot, and you're just like, oh, that's because she comes from our world. So,
but hey, open lesbian.
Sure. You know what? I guess. Was Anne a woman in Japanland?
As far as I can tell, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I liked this better than the last one you brought to me, but like, this was one where I'm like, this is over my head. Also, I continue to not like these tropes. Some of it is also, I think, I don't want to, it's either this episode or at some point in the future, and I don't want to just have like a one homely stitch and bitch, but it's just like, I hate the monarchy. I had a hard time growing up trying to figure out my own family tree and all of this. Here's the king, here's the queen, here's all these princes and princesses and dukes, and it's just like, I don't know.
Well, to be fair,
care.
This one's actually pretty easy because there's just the king and the queen. Anne is the first child, the first princess. Al is the prince, the second. You
can call him Al.
Adelgard.
Sure.
Or something like that.
I'm going to call him Al, that's what the song is.
And that's it. It's just the 4 of them.
But what about the other guy who's talking to the king?
So that's Duke Magenta. He's just a duke.
What's a duke?
They might be related distantly, but a duke is basically like a governor. So
what's up, governor?
If you liken it to the United States government, the king is the president.
Yeah.
And, there's others.
The duke is like a senator?
A duke would be more like a governor in that, like, they are in charge of a huge territory
land that is a part of the bigger kingdom that the king is in charge of.
They have a lot of autonomy. Sometimes they're closely related to the royal family and could potentially become the king if the king didn't have an heir or something like that. they're basically number 2.
Okay.
In terms of the kingdom.
I was confused while reading it, but now that you describe it, it does feel very simple and easy and connected together. But I know when I was reading it, I never know how any of that stuff connects together and who's related to what and all that. So you tell me about this. My opinion doesn't matter. I don't have anything compelling or interesting to say that's not my normal little pouty isekai light novel garbage. I want something interesting to talk about.
So I love villainous manga.
You have an entire other series about it.
But those are villainous manhwa. But villainous manga, while there's a lot of similarities, the manga do even their own thing that I still haven't figured out why the villainouses specifically I just love so much. There are multiple anthology manga where it's like 8 or 12 different like one-shots.
Oh.
And the villainous ones, it's not just villainous ones, but I read those villainous ones ravenously. And it's a different story every single time, but most of them have like the engagement annulment event or something like that. And I just can't get enough of it for whatever reason. That said, this one, it's so refreshing because most of the time you have the villainous, the person who's being annulled, having their engagement annulled, they turn the situation around somehow. Or I guess the way this came about in the first place was that you'd have a story, you're following the person the prince falls in love with, and the villainous actually does bully them and maybe tries to kill them or anything. And so the engagement annulment event is at the end, and the villainess is getting her comeuppance, and everybody's supporting the heroine then.
Because she gets to now marry the prince now that the prince has broken off his engagement.
The thing is, I've never read one of those stories.
Okay, because I was going to be like, because it's like you've dropped me into the deep end where you're already expected to have multiple levels of taken in these stories, and I'm just like, did she do it? What's happening? I just got here.
I don't think you 100% have to have read them before, but it does help if you have some idea of what's going on.
I mean, the way you're talking and then looking over the summary is it feels very keyed in of like, there's enough of these that there is such a pattern to it that you can, it's expected of your audience that they have some passing familiarity. The problem is I don't.
Right.
I have a passing familiarity by hearing you talk about them, but not experiencing them firsthand.
But then this one,
whole cohesive piece.
This one does something that other ones haven't done, where they're interjecting a third party or fifth party into the mix and just going, this isn't actually what's happening. We're doing a different story. This is just our jumping off point.
I did appreciate when she crashed through it. I'm like, yes, we get to escape from this like bullshit family ties royalty shit. And I was very just like, I'm here. Like, let's chaos. Give me to it.
Yeah. Well, and that's a lot of the charm in this because, obviously the potential lesbian relationship that's going on there, it's very cute and wholesome and, but like,
I'd say cute. I don't know if I'd say wholesome.
It's pretty wholesome.
Not at least not the translation I read. Not that it was like sexual, but it's like this person is a little too excited about this.
Well,
for me to call it wholesome.
That one part, maybe, yeah.
I'm not saying it's not good, and I'm not saying it's toxic. I'm not saying it's bad. I would not call that wholesome. When somebody talks about another character, like Sanji talks about women, when he's not having a serious moment, that's not wholesome.
As far as I've gotten, which is in like the 40s or something like that, I'm sure
nothing untoward's happened.
Yeah.
I'm sure. It's just like I got like big, thirsty, horny energy, which is fine. I'm not casting any judgment. I'm just saying.
But it's not.
I would not call that.
It's not one of those.
Yeah, no, I don't think it is. I didn't think it was.
But the big draw here is that Anne is super chaotic.
Yes.
She's all over the place. All she really cares about is making her magic tools and stuff and doing crazy things. And the dynamic between her and Euphilia, who is trying to be very straight-laced, but also support her in a lot of these endeavors.
But also she's seemingly, at least, we don't see it, but by description, she is seemingly hyper capable, which was also another thing that like was like, what? Somebody who's like a master of magic and a master swordswoman and this and that is the most just like, when getting broke. Like it didn't.
I think
I was told and not shown all those things.
Yes, and that's a fair
weird.
That's a fair criticism.
I was kind of a little miffed at that. Like you can do that a little bit when it's like a Mary Sue level like list of like, and you're the best at this and the best at this, and it's like I didn't see any of that in the first 2 chapters, even though I spent a sizable chunk of them with you.
You definitely
was kind of.
You get that.
I'm sure we see it as we keep going, but it just felt like I'm loading up this character we have to spend a lot of time with all of the boons from the we're on the new game plus run, so I get all the big end game powers right at the start.
But
a little cheap.
I think what they're going for in these first couple chapters is the fact that Euphilia has been in such a high position and being so talented and smart and everything for such a long time that being confronted in this situation is so foreign to her that she's like,
no one's ever confronted me before. So,
because she's always been kind and amazing and smart and talented and everything. And so there's no situation in which this would have occurred.
Okay. I guess I get that.
You definitely pick up a lot more farther on. But I do think your criticism of lacking that, just being told instead of seeing anything, not even flashbacks or anything.
Because it's like I'm being told this is a hyper-capable, hyper-blessed individual, but nothing I've seen in these first 2 chapters even begins to make me think this character is those descriptions at all.
Yeah.
Outside of the relationship, I mean, I by and large don't know how the villainous mangas move regardless. But, like, outside of the relationship, I don't know where this series goes. Because, obviously, I mean, maybe it's just this small... Like, it feels like we're going to have, like, bigger world political maneuvering. But mostly it feels like we're just going to have... The thing that I have the thread the most on is just them in this big mansion. Just the 2 of them and the maid. Researching magic and getting into relationship shenanigans.
Well, and I'll tell you what. If that's how it had just moved forward, I would have still been on board.
Of course you would.
That kind of stuff.
Doesn't...
This actually goes pretty nuts with like actual mystery and like politics and all this kind of stuff going on. It's the prince and the baroness's daughter, that all comes back and is like a whole it's much wider reaching than these first 2 chapters would lead you to believe.
Well, it seemed it was one of those where I was curious about it because it's like I can only follow that thread, but it's like we've mentioned these bigger political maneuvers because we have a king and a kingdom and all these things. That's if you're going to have that setting, part of what you want to do is all the political maneuvering between all the different groups and the royalty levels and yada yada yada. But like also there's pieces of like Anna specifically renounced her thing to the throne and is kept away from it. Like she stays away from everything. So it's like, well, if they're just kind of settled off in this mansion, like how much, and like also whatever the frig frag Alo's up to, it's like how much can they get up to without drawing that ire? Like I don't know how the machination works, so it's like
no, but that's exactly it, because there's a whole like the
but
magic.
But it did seem like they have to get up to something because you can't just. This feels like more than just a small romance story because
it is
not that that's a part of that's like a part of it, but like. There's more going on. Like it shows some of its hand. I just don't know how we get there, and I guess that is intriguing to me.
And then
because of curiosity.
Throughout all this other stuff going on, Euphilia falls in love with Anne by seeing her going through these things, how strong she is, how much she puts up with from people despite her, we'll call it a disability.
Yeah.
Basically every noble can use magic, but she can't. And she's basically shunned for it. And there's a whole plot line with like the Magic Association and
that's such an isekai thing of like, I've got a disability, guys, but also I have a secret boon that makes me better than everybody else on this planet. So I'm actually better than you.
Well, that's after she absorbs that dragon's soul.
What?
That happens. So.
What are you talking about?
Well, you have to read it.
No, she gets her memories back, and that's what gives her that's what gives her the super bonus that she gets to just, I don't know. Hey, hi,
it didn't do her much good until now.
Yeah, but that's we're here now, and that's what matters. We didn't see that. If I didn't see it, it didn't really happen.
But there's something important there. normally you get, they're isekai and they've got this superpower or whatever cheat.
No, yes.
And she's just like, the only power I have is that I remember stuff, and everything else I'm actually worse at.
But I guess it's my continual axe grinding with isekai of you got a bonus because by virtue of you being quote unquote from the future, you get to just bring everything you knew from the future to here, and that makes you special because you weren't special in life, because in your normal life, everybody knows what a coffee maker is.
Yes, but what if you want to make a coffee maker and the patent office, I guess, that's the best I can liken it to, says, no, you can't make that because you can't use magic and you're not allowed to use magic in that way. I'm
not saying she didn't overcome stuff. I'm just saying, like, it's the general thing of I don't like of isekais. And maybe one day we'll find one, and this will be me, the pot calling the kettle black. We literally just had a conversation about that earlier before we recorded, that I will own up to that in a heartbeat. But I never like my boon is that I lived like everybody else, and now that makes me a special little guy. I don't want to say special little snowflake. That has other... that has other meaning behind it I do not want to bring to this.
I think there's a lot more adversity in there than you are envisioning.
Yep.
So
probably. I just don't like isekai. I just don't like light novel isekais. This is the lay of the land. Maybe one day, hey, every 10 episodes from this, you get another shot. You admittedly, before I even read this one, you said, we're doing this one. You're not going to like it.
Well,
and you know that? It worked better than telling me, I think you're going to like this one. You're finally learning your lesson my sister learned a long time ago. If you hype something up too much, it will blow back in your face when I don't love it.
I specifically picked this one because we're still in the romance arc.
True, yes. I do feel like that.
We're nearing the end, but we're still in it. And this one is probably the best romance isekai I could come up with. You
can't be serious. Really?
Most
not
isekais,
just Shonen, it's just all isekai.
Most isekais don't have romance in them. Not like romance like you would want.
You keep telling me that you're bringing me like the creme de la creme of these things, and I just don't get it. And I don't have to. It doesn't have to be for me.
I don't know what to tell you. Lots of people like this.
I know. Dude, I've said it before. I'm the one on the outside. You're the one that's inside in the warm and with everybody else. I'm the one stuck outside blowing into my hands, looking at the window as my breath fogs the glass.
I guess to be fair,
shivering. Like I'm not in a good position by being like this.
It would have been a manhwa to bring, but
those are saved.
We don't really have the format for that here.
Correct. It's not bad. Like, yes, am I excited about a lesbian adventure of these two, the chaotic and the straight one? Yes, of course, duh. But not enough. It's not queer enough for me, I guess. I don't know. It's just not like, I don't know.
Maybe
I'm just really surprised that this is the cream of the crop.
Maybe try to read one chapter every once in a while and just see if, maybe if you get to chapter 6 or something, it might crap you.
Compared to the last isekai we covered, where it was like, sign the dotted line, I will do this because I'm your friend, and nothing, and no other reasons besides an obligation to somebody I care about, I'd without the threat of violence or legal action or invoking such a thing, I'd read some more of these. After talking to you about it and reading the summary again, and I'm settled in a little bit more, I'd give it a couple more chapters. I think if we didn't talk about it here, I wouldn't have done that. I wasn't planning on it. Yeah. But talking about it now, it's like, I'll give it a couple more to see how it settles in. Because this was definitely one where it felt like we had a lot of house cleaning, and I didn't get to see what it was going to be.
Yeah. And to be fair to everyone, you especially, who this is not their bag.
Nope.
If you just read the first chapter, 28 pages or whatever it was.
The second one.
Unless you're into the villainous stuff, you would not get hooked on this at all, because the first chapter is the only hook it has is, the princess is going to take her away. That's it. That's the only thing.
Yeah, this crazy chaotic person who got her memories back from the real world, but also that didn't seemingly matter because we didn't talk about it anymore after that. It was just like, slow down.
Yeah.
I need grounding somewhere.
So yeah, I mean, if I had if I had the first volume, I'd let you borrow it.
I'm gonna follow my chapters for a little while. I think the translation I read was fine. I don't remember being too put off by it. Chapter 1's always seemed stronger.
It would take you too long to get here, but later on, there's a character that comes in who is like another magical researcher. She can do magic, but she's like a goth chick who just fights with Anne all the time, even though they respect each other a lot.
Oh, like a rival?
Yeah, it's a very chaotic relationship, and it's great. But I don't think you meet her until like volume 3.
I'm intrigued. I'll give it a shot. I'll keep going. Hey, Brad, this is progress.
Yes, it is.
I had my frustrations, but I'm ending this like, yeah, I'll poke my head in. I'm not glowing yet. We're not there yet. You're gonna have to work harder for that.
Are we still gonna be in the sports arc for 49?
Well, no, do a sports one.
I mean, we did Baseball's War already.
We haven't covered baseball. We've talked about it, but we didn't cover it on. I don't know.
Didn't we?
I don't want to. No, because I cast that out of the kingdom before I think we even had Shonen jumping the gun. Oh, that's dangerous. No, I don't want to.
The first episode of that is a hook.
That is
first chapter.
No, I can't. If I didn't know the things that I knew and stopped, yeah. Okay, let's get back on track.
See if I can find something else.
Yeah. What are your feelings on this?
This is one of my favorite villainous manga. So I'm going to have to say amazing.
Okay. I can respect that.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine, but not derogatory.
Fine, positive.
Fine, hopeful. Fine,
optimistic.
Yeah, there we go. Fine, parentheses, optimistic. I feel like we've already made clear I would not buy the volume, but I would borrow the heck out of it from Brad. Feel like that's an apt spot to be at. In the vein of Frieren, but I liked Frieren probably more than I'm going to like this. It was a fun. Yeah. It'd be a good talking point.
We'll have to watch the anime and see if it's worth it.
I genuinely would be curious to watch the first episode of the anime, which if it's out at the time of recording, we might be watching directly after this. Yeah. Who knows?
It's not going to be like Isekai Shikaku because
nothing will be Isekai Shikaku.
That's just so good.
It's just so magical. He hates isekai worlds. I love it. He wants to die. I love it.
But there might be enough chaotic energy in the anime.
I'm curious now to have read it and then to go watch it in the vein, but backwards of when we watched Faraway Paladin and then read the manga. But I feel like this is going to be
that anime. Oh my god.
Hopefully this anime is less bottom of the barrel than that one was, because that one was real. It charmed me enough to make me read it, even though it was kind of rough.
Yeah. It was a medium anime.
I'm assuming you'd buy it?
Yeah, I think this might be one where once it's complete, I might buy the box set.
Wow.
Up until now, I've been like, I'm just reading it where I can. But I do really like this one. So
dig it. I believe with that, unless you have any other thoughts we have not hit on yet.
No, I think we're good.
Okay. I believe we're at the end of the episode. So thank you everybody for listening. And Brad, hit me with them plugs.
As always, we want to thank Sugoi Mart for partnering with us. I think everybody knows what Sugoi Mart is by now. And I'll just remind everybody that our listeners can check the link in the description or use code APR15 at checkout to get 15% off their first order. But of course, we want to hear from people. So head on over to animepodcasterreincarnation.com and check out our social links page, where you can find links to all of our various social media, like all of the ones that we're on. But
all of them, all the ones.
Be sure to check out our Discord link, because that's where we hang out all the time, and that's the best place to chat with us. But on that page, you can also find a link to our Patreon, where our supporters get perks like getting to vote on which series we cover on heroin addiction, getting bonus episodes from time to time. I think by the time this episode comes out, we'll have another one up there. And getting the high-quality stereo version of the podcast early. And our patrons get shout-outs. So we want to thank them. First and foremost, at our noble tier, we have our marquee, Sir Cake Dwarf. At our reincarnated tier, we've got Moon. And at our commoner tier, we've got Rena and Kill Hour. So thank you so much to all our patrons.
Thank you, Brad. And thank you once again, everybody, for listening. Make sure you listen to the other series on our podcast feed. And Brad, I'm annulling this podcast. This podcast is over.
So you want me to do the read?
I want you to do these because you know me. I like continuity until I get bored of it, and then we do something else. But for right now, these being your special episodes on the Nines.
I like continuity 3 times.
I like continuity until I get bored of it.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Sphinx of black quartz, hear my vow. Have you heard that one? Both of those are sentences that use every letter in the alphabet.
Yes. I knew the first one. The second one I did not. I thought you were reciting some magical incantation.
The second one is so much better, and everyone should use it.
But it's longer, isn't it? Also, then you have to know how to spell Sphinx. I don't... Do you want to start recording the episode, or we still bullshitting? We can keep bullshitting. I just am confused because I thought we were going to start the episode.
It's better. No, I don't
disagree.
I'm trying...
I guess I disagree a little bit.
I'm speaking because I had a tickle in my throat, so I'm trying to make sure my voice is working properly.
You need the vocal warm-ups. You're not a computer. You can't just say all the letters, and that is you making all the word sounds.
Well, I couldn't think of the vocal warm-ups.
Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather.
So I went with all the
tip
letters.
Of the teeth, the tongue, and the something.
Tits.
I mean, yes, that fits, but I don't think that's what he said. I'm just remembering all of the
tip of the tongue, the teeth, the tits.
It's not the tits. Raz did not say tits. But I don't know what he said. It was another "t" sound. It's when you're in Psychonauts 2, when you're in the band level with all the senses, and it's all 60s psychedelic, and you go up to the microphones, and Raz just has a bunch of like incidental dialogue of him warming up on the mics.
Eventually, my voice will work correctly, and for long enough that we can record.
Record hopefully 2 episodes. You want another?
Hey, Kill Hour. The Kaiser is at it again.
Old-timey radio voices.